Welcome to the Q&A session for Ninja Assassin, a brutal journey of indoctrination, defiance, and self-reclamation. Please listen carefully and answer the questions. Are you ready? Let's go! Ninja Assassin chronicles the life of Raizo, a man forged through coercion and brutality by the clandestine Ozunu clan, an underground ninja syndicate whose operations evade public scrutiny and flourish beneath layers of denial and misinformation. To the modern world, the clan is dismissed as folklore. To its victims, it is an omnipresent and merciless force. What does Ninja Assassin chronicle? It chronicles the life of Raizo. How was the man shaped by the Ozunu clan? He was forged through coercion and brutality. What is the clandestine Ozunu clan described as? It is described as an underground ninja syndicate whose operations evade public scrutiny. Why is the Ozunu clan not easily discovered by society? Because it flourishes beneath layers of denial and misinformation. How is the clan viewed by the modern world? The clan is dismissed as folklore. Who experiences the clan as a real and dangerous threat? Its victims experience it as an omnipresent and merciless force. Raizo's descent begins in childhood, when he is abducted from the socio-economic margins of the city. Homeless, nameless, and socially expendable, he is an ideal target for recruitment. Upon arrival at the clan's fortified enclave, his former existence is methodically obliterated. Personal history is erased, individuality suppressed, and identity reconstructed to serve a singular purpose: lethality. When does Raizo's descent begin? Raizo's descent begins in his childhood, when he is abducted from the socio-economic margins of the city. Why is Raizo seen as an ideal target for recruitment? Because he is homeless, nameless, and socially expendable. What happens to Raizo's former existence when he arrives at the clan's fortified enclave? His former existence is methodically obliterated. What happens to Raizo's personal history and individuality? His personal history is erased and his individuality is suppressed. Why is Raizo's identity reconstructed? It is reconstructed to serve a singular purpose: lethality. Within the Ozunu clan, education is indistinguishable from torment. Trainees endure relentless physical conditioning, ritualized violence, and psychological manipulation designed to dismantle empathy. Moral reasoning is framed as a liability, while obedience is exalted as virtue. Through prolonged indoctrination, Raizo evolves into an elite assassin, efficient, disciplined, and emotionally desensitized. How is education portrayed within the Ozunu clan? It is portrayed as indistinguishable from torment. What do trainees endure within the Ozunu clan? They endure relentless physical conditioning, ritualized violence, and psychological manipulation designed to dismantle empathy. Why is moral reasoning framed as a liability within the clan? Because it interferes with absolute obedience and emotional detachment. What quality is exalted as a virtue by the clan? Obedience is exalted as the highest virtue. What does Raizo become through prolonged indoctrination? He evolves into an elite assassin, efficient, disciplined, and emotionally desensitized. This grim equilibrium is disrupted when Raizo forms a tenuous emotional connection with Kiriko, a fellow trainee whose quiet defiance exposes the moral bankruptcy of the clan's doctrine. Her compassion reawakens Raizo's suppressed humanity. When Kiriko is publicly executed as a deterrent, the spectacle produces the opposite effect. It catalyzes Raizo's moral awakening. What disrupts the grim equilibrium in Raizo's life? This grim equilibrium is disrupted when Raizo forms a tenuous emotional connection with Kiriko. Who is Kiriko within the Ozunu clan? She is a fellow trainee whose quiet defiance exposes the moral bankruptcy of the clan's doctrine. How does Kiriko affect Raizo emotionally? Her compassion reawakens Raizo's suppressed humanity. What happens to Kiriko as a warning to others? She is publicly executed as a deterrent. What effect does the public execution have on Raizo? The spectacle produces the opposite effect. It catalyzes Raizo's moral awakening. Disillusionment festers into resentment. Loyalty corrodes into ethical repulsion. Unable to reconcile his conscience with institutionalized cruelty, Raizo defects from the clan and vanishes into anonymity. There, he recalibrates his skills, not as an instrument of control, but as a weapon of retribution against his former masters. What does disillusionment turn into? Disillusionment festers into resentment. What happens to Raizo's loyalty? It corrodes into ethical repulsion. How does Raizo respond when he can no longer reconcile his conscience with the clan's institutionalized cruelty? He defects from the clan and vanishes into anonymity. How does Raizo redefine his skills after leaving the clan? He recalibrates his abilities not as an instrument of control, but as a weapon of retribution against his former masters. Concurrently, Europol analyst Mika Coretti uncovers anomalies in a string of high-profile political assassinations. Through forensic accounting and data triangulation, she traces illicit financial networks sustaining an unseen paramilitary apparatus. Her pursuit of transparency places her squarely in mortal danger. What does Mika Coretti discover while working as a Europol analyst? She uncovers anomalies in a series of high-profile political assassinations. How does Mika trace the unseen paramilitary apparatus? Through forensic accounting and data triangulation, she traces illicit financial networks. What do the illicit financial networks sustain? They sustain an unseen paramilitary apparatus. How does Mika's pursuit of transparency affect her safety? It places her squarely in mortal danger. When Mika's investigation infringes upon the Ozunu clan's operational secrecy, assassination attempts follow swiftly. Her survival hinges on Raizo's intervention. Forced into flight, the two form an uneasy alliance, marked by ideological friction and mutual necessity. Why does Mika swiftly become a target of assassination attempts? Because her investigation infringes upon the Ozunu clan's operational secrecy. What does Mika's survival hinge on? Her survival hinges on Raizo's intervention. What kind of alliance do Raizo and Mika form while on the run? Forced into flight, they form an uneasy alliance marked by ideological friction and mutual necessity. As the manhunt escalates, Raizo moves with cold precision, methodically dismantling the clan's chain of command through deliberate and compromising violence. Every clash chips away at the psychological programming that once bound him, replacing blind obedience with sharpened resolve. At the same time, Mika struggles to survive in a world where rigid legal procedures collapse under the brutal necessity of instinct and adaptability. How does Raizo respond as the manhunt escalates? As the manhunt escalates, he moves with cold precision, methodically dismantling the clan's chain of command through deliberate and compromising violence. What effect does each clash have on Raizo? Every clash chips away at the psychological programming that once bound him, replacing blind obedience with sharpened resolve. What does Mika struggle with at the same time? She struggles to survive in a world where rigid legal procedures collapse under the brutal necessity of instinct and adaptability. The story reaches its climax when Raizo finally confronts the Ozunu elders, a reckoning that unfolds not only through bloodshed, but through belief. Standing before them, he rejects their doctrine of absolute control, choosing self-rule and moral responsibility over a life forged by coercion and fear. When does the story reach its climax? It reaches its climax when Raizo finally confronts the Ozunu elders, a reckoning that unfolds not only through bloodshed, but through belief. What choice does Raizo make when he stands before the Ozunu elders? He rejects their doctrine of absolute control, choosing self-rule and moral responsibility over a life forged by coercion and fear. By the final moments, Ninja Assassin sheds the skin of a conventional action film. It unfolds as a stark tale of fractured identity, the corrosive weight of sustained violence, and the painful struggle to reclaim agency. Raizo survives scarred yet unchained, no longer a weapon shaped by manipulation, but a man who seizes authorship of his own destiny. How is Ninja Assassin characterized at the end of the film? By the final moments, it sheds the skin of a conventional action film. What kind of story does Ninja Assassin ultimately unfold as? It unfolds as a stark tale of fractured identity, the corrosive weight of sustained violence, and the painful struggle to reclaim agency. How does Raizo emerge by the end of the story? He survives scarred yet unchained, no longer a weapon shaped by manipulation, but a man who seizes authorship of his own destiny. Wow! Well done! Congratulations! You made it! Keep practicing this lesson every single day until you completely master it. Don't ever forget, no pain, no gain. See you again. Bye.